Welcome to TradeTheIndia.com. This is John, this reports for the 16th of September. And of course, we've had the nice little dip. We saw a little bit of a turnaround on this complete reset. We've had improvement from the shakeout for the last few days. And as well with the crossing of the green here, midterm buyers and short-term buyers have really what saved 50%. It's a typical institutional buyer reset. And we had filled in the positive extremes that we had from earlier. And all those got filled. And we've just pulled right back up to the same spot. We had the crossover of Power Mode 2 a few days back, and that has led to this most recent up move. The fact that we're not getting a complete dip of orange below the white there, not great. You did get it with the below the red, which was significant enough to signal. But now we're reaching this point where green has really got to push past cyan, and the likelihood of that on this reset, probably not the greatest. Usually what we get in this case is an attempt up, and then we see where we're at with the shakeout, and we still haven't returned back to zero or positive. So if that begins to roll over, then I would expect a much stronger move towards the zero, because now we have that rising Fibonacci zero line, and it tends to want to pull price. But for now, we just follow where we're at, and the momentum is clearly with buyers at this particular point pulling this back up. It would be that secondary move, whether we can make it all the way to the highs or even press forward, and then where we look at our shakeout from there. We had that extreme move above the 25 level, which is not sustainable. We knew that from one. So this gives us a complete reset, and we're still relatively close to the highs, and this is something we've been experiencing since the Fed took over and basically controls the market. And they've been doing the same thing. They get enough excitement in shorts to justify a little bit of a decline, and then they suck that up and then force the short covering, which usually drives us to the new highs. And we've been seeing that consistently for months since the pandemic started. Actually, it's been pretty consistent. Again, we're waiting for gold to continue its press back up and to make new highs, and that's really going to be subject of either international conflict. Though there's been a lot of peace around the world so far, at least from the major players, and really what you're looking for here will be some view that either the dollar is going to have an imminent collapse or that inflation is starting to take hold. And again, that's not really going to happen until the U.S. becomes more free-flowing and not under lockdown conditions from COVID-related items. And from the euro, they're just elevated it there based on the idea that the eurozone was a bit more free as far as trading in that, though it's not proving to be the case, but it certainly helps U.S. companies with an exchange rate benefit right there. And then from an oil standpoint, turning around off that dismal move, and this is just really a question of are people going to be back in their cars, moving around, doing things, because otherwise you're not going to have sufficient demand. So this idea of working from home or remotely certainly is not doing oil any favors. So from an intraday standpoint, we started off with that morning press here. We had our little dotted line signals that were corresponding to Power Mo buy, along with DOC, and then subsequently adding in the turnaround pivot of the algos from the long short algo, suggesting that we were going to have more momentum with the move, and then of course we did get that. Once we did get to the peak, we still had cyan under red until like midpoint through here, and you still couldn't even do anything with that because you still didn't have any type of crossover. Once I start to see the crossovers, then I'm starting to look at each of these different rise and breakdowns. A little bit more interested in them from a short standpoint. When we had this first early DOC spread that took place right over here, came a little bit after we'd already had the selling, so I wasn't anticipating too much of a move. We had the full reset of the shakeout right there. Then we made the little bit lower peak, so it's one of those where I'm looking to test ABM levels, most likely looking then for a return move, which did come back in a little bit later, but it was the secondary one that was off lower shakeout, and having had the little bit of a spike right here in our Power Mode 2 readings. And that one I did take, and that really worked out nicely. I was expecting first the 33.92 level, and when we did get the turnaround on the Power Mo, we were still in declining Azure, as well as the shakeout was really looking ugly at that particular point, and we just broke through it, and then it became the resistance point from the top until we got a new signal that came in here off the dip of orange, the cross. So you can see those happen simultaneously coming off there, and of course I like to look at that 23%, and once it gets closed above, then you know you've got something that's potentially sustainable. And when that happened right over here, we were around 86. So from that open of this one, and then boom, this is where we find ourselves at this particular stage. You can see that even when we ended up with a little bit of weakness, attempting to fill back the positive extreme that took place, we didn't have any corresponding sell from the Power Mode 2. It was just an awkward shakeout point at that, and then we ended up with the rising gold, which literally elevated. And that's where we find ourselves right now. Created a few more positive extremes. We filled a couple of those, but the most recent one, we'll see a little backfilling in there. But all in all, really good, clean action for the day. It was an excellent range. I mean, I don't think you can complain about the overall value of that range, both from a long side as well as the short. So really good stuff. As always though, I will put anything relevant up on the Skype chat. Trade well. We'll talk to you later.